Right. So, hello to episode 2 of the ED show. Today, we're going to be discussing a little bit to do with psychology and specifically the psychology of cults and things like that. So, I want maybe Daryl, you want to explain who your friend is?
Well, I got introduced to this fellow behind me through Elliot because one day Elliot approached me and he was wearing a T-shirt, and I said,
It was this
"Who?"
T-shirt, wasn't it?
Yeah, who is that? And I just thought it was a rather odd thing to be displaying. And then when we went into a conversation about it, I was just, I found it very, very amusing. And then as
You
a
fell in
birthday
love a little
present,
bit, didn't you?
I did,
Yeah.
yeah, of course. And then as a birthday present, I had this fellow gifted to me as a cushion,
Yes.
and he's rather interesting, shall we say?
So, in case any of the viewers aren't aware of who this wonderful man is, his name is Braco, and he's a miracle healer. Um, I just want to read you a little extract from an article written by Global Light Minds. I'll see if I can. I don't necessarily need to share my screen. I won't bother because it's a rather ugly website, but hey ho. There's a wonderful picture of. Actually, I will share it just for the sake of this picture. Right, can you see that?
Yeah, I can actually see that. Yeah.
So lovely picture of Braco,
Yeah.
and it says, "Some call Braco a healer. Some call Braco a conduit of divine energy. Some call Braco a gazer, a light worker, a miracle master, or even a vibrational healing artist who is somehow able to silently and instantly heal or peacefully message the consciousness of tens of thousands around the world for years into feeling better or embracing more joy." And that's the wonderful thing about Braco is he's a conduit for positive energy in quite a literal sense. I'm actually subscribed to him on YouTube. He's got a great YouTube channel. He does a live stream every single night uh, for as long as I've been subscribed, which has been about 3 weeks. But still, he's an interesting chap. Let's go more into what he does. This is a little video.
Could I
Of,
just ask before we cut to the
yeah,
video?
yeah, sure.
Does he actually have any financial gain out of this?
I imagine there must be some sort of uh, transactional.
Because if the consciousness wants to go with sort of believing in this guy and really sort of believing in the lifting their vibration and healing, I'm down with that, even though I do find
I
some of this
mean,
a little bit comical, but
he's on YouTube for free, which fair
yeah.
enough. He's getting money from the views that he's raking in, but he does post his um, gazing for free on YouTube, which is pretty good, I must say. There's probably a stream archive if anyone's interested, or you can just tune in literally every single night of the week, and he's there gazing away. But let's have a look, see what this video is about. I don't know what we're going to see here, but I imagine it'll be good. Oh, here he is, the man, the myth, the legend.
most important person in the world today.
I've never experienced anything like this. He's one of a kind.
Miracles begin to happen immediately.
Braco is a conduit. He's bringing in the pure divine light, the pure divine love.
Well, with the first gazing that's when I felt hope. I was hopeless.
It was just so profound what's occurred today, and it's truly a miracle.
I mean, it was, I don't know, it's amazing.
There he is.
Braco sees up to 10,000 people a day.
Wouldn't it be great if you found out that he was the patient zero for coronavirus?
Sensations of oneness, feeling profound connection.
Well, to tell you the truth, that's a dream spell in itself. But, you know, yeah, this is just, I mean,
10,000 people a day, bloody hell. Even if they're paying like 50p on the door, like, you're getting somewhere there, you know?
Well, to be honest with you, in terms of healing, raising people's consciousness and vibration, and he's got a following, there's no doubt about that, we can see, then why not? You know, I mean, I don't want to be here to call a skeptic. I just think it's fascinating to work out, and from our point of view, or definitely from mine, I'm trying to work out if this is genuine or if it is a cult, you know, and that is probably open to interpretation.
I mean, let's keep watching, see what we can find out from this little video.
To the universe, to the earth, to each other.
I mean, whatever you have to say
By
about
its
him,
very nature, what
you
Braco
can't
is
deny
doing
that he's a very
supports
sexy
the
man.
ideas and wishes of global oneness, bringing people together in peace and harmony, reconnecting each with themselves and each other over and over again through every in-person or live stream gazing.
Uh-oh, uh-oh. See, some can't handle it, you know. Very intense atmosphere.
I came because I had terrible sciatica, and it was getting so bad that I couldn't sleep.
Well, I think for
and
some,
then I saw Braco.
you know, again, I'm interested how many people here are vulnerable people, you know, that have probably taken a few wrong turns in their lives and are looking for some sort of hope. Obviously, they don't tell you, or you know, in these videos where they're endorsing him as such. But then again, you know,
I haven't seen anything scummy about him on the internet. All I've seen
he does seem credible, doesn't he? In fairness,
all I've seen from him is people being confused as to why he's got such a massive following.
I'm trying to get it. You know, I'm trying to look at his stare. You know, I'm trying to sort of get how you could have the global healing locally by tuning into YouTube. And I suppose the other thing that's quite difficult with him, he doesn't communicate other than staring. Lots of people, like, you know, I show people the cushion and what have you, and they just think it's creepy. You know, so it has the adverse effect, you know, to what it is. It just weirds people out, you know. And you know, I don't want to disparage or discredit this man if he is trying to do fine work, you know.
Only live streamed, and from that night forward, I've been able to sleep all through the night. I can roll on both sides. I got my mobility back. The pain is gone.
I did the live streaming. It was my first experience, and it was so intense. I felt the most amazing unconditional love, like divine white light love that I've been craving all my life. On the internet, live streaming, it was crazy.
He's holding the space for the pure divine light to come in through him
and to be shined out through every cell in his body and through his look. And when he looks, it's like this laser of light comes right through the room, and it's just, everybody's awash with the pure divine light. And in that light, all is possible.
He not only communes with each individual as he's gazing through, but he, at some point in time, can take the whole group, the whole collective, and treat us as one being. And then once he has us like that,
and if it is an elaborate construct of a cult, it's been well orchestrated and played.
This is a question that's been on my mind. Do you think that something like this could happen anywhere except for the southern areas of the United States of America? Sort of places like California, places like Florida.
Well, I've never been to those destinations, but I'm aware of the destinations, and I'm aware.
I mean, I've been there. I'm just wondering if Bratzo turned up in Gateshead, do you think that he would be received with as much belief?
That's a very good question. I mean, you know, we're talking about a part of the world that is alternative, shall we say, compared to anywhere else. I don't want to be negative towards my brothers and sisters over in the US, but definitely
I love the Americans. You know, I've spent
same here
many months there over the past few years.
And I know you do, and I know you've got great affection for them, same as I. But I will be honest, there's lots of things about their culture that I love. But one of the things that, perhaps I'm too British, I don't know, but I just don't get. Like, for instance, a pet psychiatrist or a pet therapist.
They're a lot more in touch with themselves, a lot more open.
Yeah.
I'd say.
And I don't know if that's something we should envy, or sometimes actually, because I think they're such open-minded people and they're such great people, but by the same token, I mean, like I say, I'm not taking anything away from Braco. I think he could be, you know, the real deal. But if he's not, and this is an elaborate stunt, then in my opinion, my brothers and sisters across the Atlantic have been a bit more hoodwinked and conditioned with modern day society to be able to believe. And there's something about the naive gullibility that I love about them. But there's also, and I don't mean all, and I don't mean everybody in America is gullible. You know, I'm going to put that disclaimer out there. But I do believe that there are, you know, some sorts of, you know, there are some parts that are completely and utterly, you know, I mean, it's just all sorts of things.
Having stayed in California for a very long time, a few years back, the culture is very, very much that anything is possible. You know, that they have, and I think it comes from the whole manifest destiny idea, which is a very American concept. I don't know if you've looked into that much.
I have, yeah.
It's basically that whatever you believe that you can achieve, you will, if you put enough effort in. You put enough towards it, you know, and destiny is yours to grab and to take, you know.
And that is how the human body sort of works, in my opinion. You know, we have got opportunity to shift consciousness and shift paradigms, and that sort of
well, you feel it. It's a palpable sense of you can achieve. You know, anybody has the potential to.
Well,
to
I
be the
suppose it's the
best.
American dream, isn't
It
it?
is, yeah. And I mean, nothing. I'll get onto it later, because this is starting to develop into a Americans podcast. But
Yeah, of course.
you know, there's the My Pillow guy. Don't know if you've seen him.
Yes, you sent me a clip, and I just genuinely couldn't work him out at all. I was totally baffled.
I love My Pillow. It's one of the best adverts ever. But you know, this is a guy that just decided, I'm going to make a pillow, and now he's a bit like a multi-millionaire. So, because it's a good pillow, and you know, there's all these ideas of business over there, and I think that's important. But I don't know if that's what Brazzo's keying into, or if he's just keying into the idea that Americans hold that life is nothing but potential, which is a good thing. Anyway, let's continue.
Anything can happen.
This man,
see, there you go. Anything can happen.
He's a key. Every word that we speak, every thought that we think, every action that we take in life towards joy, towards love, towards peace, towards harmony. We affect the grandmother in Mumbai, and we affect the child playing in the sandbox in Missouri. We have to. We can't not. We're one.
Someone that can escort in the divine love at the pure level that he does could change the entire planet.
The world is going to change.
Many say that live streaming with Brazzo is the purest experience they've ever felt.
There you go. Right. But
to be honest with you, I find it interesting. I'll say that. You know, there's a couple of different ways of looking at it. You know, the younger unenlightened me would have just said, look, you know, this man isn't well. He's clearly, you know, a charlatan, and he's out for making a few quid, and he's freaky. And that's the younger unenlightened me would have said that, and I probably would have used a few choice words with that as well. Whereas now, you know, I've
you
I've
can't
got an
deny
open
that
mind.
he's helped a hell of a lot of people. Like, even if it is just, you know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, with that, I know exactly what you're trying to say, but we can manifest our own reality, and
yeah,
you know, look, it's arguable, and people have said before, you know, when people go to Lords and things, you know, is it something that the human has healed themselves? I read an article once about a guy that believed that he could treat his cancer like a piece of pizza, and he ate the piece of the pizza every day till the cancer went away, and it did, and it was a miracle cure. So, you know, and if people believe in you know, then, you know, all power to him. I mean, if he's helping the, you know, people in the world, then great. But like I say, going back to your original point, would he be received? You know, I'm trying to picture him walking into the Wyndham pub in Merthyr Tydfil. You know, that kind of thing. Would he be received there? See, you don't talk. That's the other thing as well. You know, so, but, you know, it's like Fort Apache around there, you know. So it's just kind of interesting, really, to see different perspectives, I suppose.
I'm torn with him, because on the one hand, he's done a lot, but I can't help but find it quite funny. You know, I'm a great fan of his. But, you know, as you can see, you know, we both sporting the merch.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's difficult. Anyway, that was our little, or rather long introduction into psychology, or the, you know, the idea of just, I suppose, constructs, human constructs, you know.
Yeah.
How things sort of spiral. I'm going to show you something that I think is vaguely connected. It's called the Mouse Utopia Experiment. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I haven't.
So basically, in the 1950s, there was a scientist that did a social experiment on mice called the Mouse Utopia Experiment, and it's quite interesting. Says a lot about modern times.
Actually, I think I have come across this, but you'll still have to refresh my memory.
I will share my screen in just a second. Right, so let's have a looky.
The work of Dr. John Calhoun at the National Institute of Health in Washington, D.C. has attempted to answer this question. In a unique experiment that took years to complete, Dr. Calhoun used white mice to study population growth and its effects on individual behavior. In addition to his renowned research papers, he has recorded some of these observations on film. In this 16-cell mouse habitat, utopian conditions of nutrition, comfort, and housing were provided for a potential population of over 3,000 mice. Yet, in spite of ideal conditions, the mouse population met with catastrophe. Individuals were kept track of by color markings on their fur. Factors which normally control population growth, such as predation by owls or cats, were eliminated. Transmissible disease was also reduced. In effect, the mouse universe simulated the present situation of a continually expanding population of humans. To see how Dr. Calhoun's mouse universe grew, we'll use the familiar...
Now this is where it starts getting a bit creepy.
Within the first 100 days, the mice went through the period Dr. Calhoun called strive. This was a period of adjustment. Territories were established and nests were made. The next period lasted about 250 days. The population of the mice doubled every 60 days. This was called the exploit period. The use of resources became unequal, although each...
So is it me? Are they being conditioned into doing whatever he wants, basically?
No, they're given all the food they could possibly need, all the space they could, well, they're near each other, but they've all got their individual habitats. They've all got their individual nests, and there's enough men and women and comfort and everything, you know, everything is sorted for them. There's no predators, there's nothing. So there's nothing to control their population growth. They just let it run, just see what happens. And obviously it's in a fairly close-knit community to simulate, well, he never says that it simulates a city, I don't think, but it's simulating urban living, basically.
Structure and opportunities. More food and water was consumed in some areas. As the population increased, Most mice associated eating and drinking with the presence of others, and crowding developed in certain units. The third period, consisting of 300 days, found the population of mice leveling off. This was called the equilibrium period. Dr. Calhoun noticed that the newer generations of young were inhibited, since most space was already socially defined. At this time, some unusual behavior became noticeable. Violence became prevalent. Excess males strived for acceptance, were rejected, and withdrew. Huddling together, they would exhibit brief flurries of violence among themselves. The effects of violence became increasingly visible. Certain individuals became targets of repeated attack. These individuals would have badly chewed and scarred tails. Other young mice growing into adulthood exhibited an even different type of behavior. Dr. Calhoun called these individuals the beautiful ones. Their time was devoted solely to grooming, eating, and sleeping. They never involved themselves with others, engaged in sex, nor would they fight. All appeared as a beautiful exhibit of the species, with keen, alert eyes and a healthy, well-kept body. These mice, however, could not cope with unusual stimuli. Though they looked inquisitive, they were, in fact, very stupid. Dr. Calhoun called the last period the die phase, leading the population into extinction.
I'm finding it rather astonishing.
This is all real.
Yeah.
Draw parallels as you may, but there's definitely I definitely see quite a lot of cultural trends that seem to mimic what these mice went through in the 50s, but that might just be me. But let's just keep watching because it gets more and more interesting.
Although the mouse Utopia could house 3,000, the population began to decline at 2,200. In the shift from the equilibrium to the die phase, each animal became less aware of associates, despite all animals being pushed closer together. Dr. Calhoun concluded that the mice could not effectively deal with the repeated contact of so many individuals. The evidence of violence increased to the point where most individuals had had their tails bitten to some degree. Eventually, the entire mouse population perished. Dr. Calhoun's experiment is a classic example of a typical population and its growth when left unchecked. Research in this area continues under his supervision. Currently, Dr. James Hill has taken the basics of the Calhoun experiment to study social behavior even more closely. In his experiments, rats are used instead of mice. Healthy individuals are selected to start the population. The rats are anesthetized so that Dr. Hill can perform a minor operation necessary to the success of his experiments. A small electromagnetic encapsulated device is implanted into every rat. This small unit enables sensing devices to keep track of the movement and position of each individual in the population. After surgery, the rats are introduced to their new multi-leveled home, all at the same time. The rats immediately begin to explore their new environment prior to organizing territories and nesting. Dr. Hill will trace how individuals move about in crowded situations. This movement is followed by tubular sensing devices. Every time a rat enters or passes through a tube, the unit detects and registers its presence. This constant movement is monitored by computer. Nesting activity is also studied. Dr. Hill has observed that the larger the population, the less care a mother gives to her nest and young. The same type of individuals that resulted in the mouse utopia are also emerging in the rat population. There are aggressives, asocials, and outcasts. Though these studies use animals, the findings about population growth and individual behavior are being closely compared to our own human population. Like all
I take it they moved from the mice to the rats, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And
found exactly the same thing.
It's phenomenal, isn't it?
I mean,
when you think about it.
This was groundbreaking research at the time. Not a lot of people know about it, but I don't know. So this is, yes, it's not as fun as the Bratzo idea. You know, this is a very different topic, but they're both in the sort of vein of collectivism.
So what's your takeaway from this? What do you think that's key from this, really?
I think the idea of the asocial animals developing through lack of upward mobility, because that's the real kicker in these Utopia experiments. Every time all of the hierarchies already established, the next generation that then comes in has nowhere to move. They can't take over from the ones before them, so they have to try and define themselves, and they don't manage it. So they're either outcasts, they group into violent gangs, basically, or gangs as much as gangs of mice is a thing, or they become completely asocial and sort of switch off from society and just eat and drink and don't really notice. And the reason that these populations died out, by the way, is because they just stopped breeding eventually.
Yeah, which is quite interesting when you look at the modern world right now.
If you look at a population graph of somewhere like Japan,
yeah,
which is the most technologically and I would say urban country on the planet, you're starting to see asocial people in Japan. There's a lot of people that prefer the comfort of their room, their internet, and that's where.
Not only that, there's a lack of human interaction, and to be honest with you, I'm not saying in all cases here, because again, I don't want to offend any of the Japanese audience or anything else like that we could have, but definitely one of the things that I found interesting, I don't know how point of fact this is, but they got those love bots, haven't they? Which is another.
But that comes from a replacement for.
Well, this is it entirely. It's like
it's an asocial replacement for something that's awkward. So it's socially engaging, and like I don't know if you've spent much time in big cities, but when you've been around, like walking around New York or something like that, your brain gets fried after a couple of hours because there's just so many people there. And I think if
I
you're
haven't experienced it.
even if you're the most sociable person on the planet, the part of your sort of base brain that is fight or flight, you know, is going to be on edge because there's that many people. And growing up in East London, I learned to watch your wallet, watch your phone. You know, you got to keep eyes in the back of your head so you don't get mugged. And so, a hyper urban environment like what New York City's like, or like London to an extent, like on the tube, and that it does fry your brain after a few hours, and you just want to sit in your house in somewhere where there isn't any other social interaction, and you just want to ignore the outside world. But that's my experience anyway.
So do you think society has been preconditioned into that? And do you
I don't think it's necessarily a deliberate thing. I think it's just.
Oh, I do. You see, yeah, I don't want to harp on too much about globalists, but I do think it is part of their agenda because, you know, there's different pockets of society that get targeted, and they're always poor, and they're always this, and they're always that, they're always underprivileged, and
the poorer you are, the higher population density, like it tends to be. You know, like in urban centers, people that are rich tend to have larger accommodation. You know.
Well, not only that, I just feel, I mean, even when it comes to breeding, you know, you know, you look at the royal family, for instance, you got Prince Charles, right? He is a classic example of interbreeding. You know, the ugly bastard could chew a tennis racket, you know, as to chew an apple through a tennis racket. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, you got people like that that have been bred in and bred in and bred in. And he is actually the runt of that litter, you know? And you look at people like that and, you know, they keep in the family, they keep in the bloodline and everything like that. And, you know, you look at, you know, middle class and lower ends of society, you know, that are impoverished and different things like that. Because even middle class, I mean, it's not middle class anymore like one would decide it's middle class. I mean, what do they say now? The average living wage in the UK is £35,000 a year. Right, or you know, that's not actually, I mean, whoever's doing those polls is completely and utterly out of touch, you know.
I suppose if you know, you've got the odd few billionaires, that will raise the average up quite drastically, but I think the average in people that are in the middle classes and lower is probably more, you know, you're talking more around 16. Like,
yeah,
in terms
and they topped up with incomes, and I genuinely do believe that is deliberate. And you know, when you've got great scientists and great people doing experiments like this, if you are an elite globalist, just throwing it out there, then you've got money to put labs and these people in your pockets. Not necessarily this person is doing something for the bad of humanity. They're doing it for an experiment. But yeah, I mean,
I think he's this scientist, you know, he's had the misfortune of shining a light under a table and having a load of cockroaches spill out, for lack of a better. He's you know, stumbled across something and he's gone, oh God. Because I legitimately think he was just interested in seeing what would happen to populations if they were given everything that they wanted.
Yeah.
for long enough. He just wanted to know what Utopia would do to a population, and he proved that it was not good.
I'm of the opinion. I don't know about you, and you know, I don't know about this. This is just something that I like the idea of. If you give, sorry, because my light is, but if you give a population everything they need, like we'll use somewhere in Africa, for instance, that doesn't have irrigation, doesn't have good soil and everything like that. And, you know, I'm nowhere specific. I'm just sort of, you know, I'm just wondering if they were given everything they needed, so they had the autonomy themselves to do it. I wonder how, like if you give a village energy or the resource for energy, the resource to create food, the know-how, and just let them get on with it, and left it for 20 years and then went back there, I wonder how they would thrive in conjunction with an experiment like that. I just wonder how they'd sort of move on. I think it could be a very interesting you know, way of looking at that experiment. And of course, that's not discrediting the, you know, the great work that scientist did, because I think it's very interesting.
It is. I mean, that would, you know, it would certainly be good in terms of it would show some interesting psychological points, but it's, you know, the ethics of giving some sort of tribal community loads of technology and then leaving them alone, you know, it's probably not gonna happen anytime soon. But yeah, I think if humans, but I think you can draw enough comparisons with the setup that we've currently got. I think because, I mean, everyone knows what the millennial sense of humor is, you know?
Yes.
It's all nihilistic. And I think that comes from, similar to how the mice had nowhere to go on the social ladder because every rung was already filled. I think that's how, I mean, you're a Gen Xer, so I don't know if you have had the same experience, but as a millennial, there is this nihilistic sense of, what do I do with my life?
From a millennial's point of view, right now, with society how it stands, the average age of a person now expected to leave home is 35. And that's a genuine statistic. And
I imagine that's to do with parents dying, either one or both.
Well, the thing is, and this again is a genuine statistic, right now, if you've got parents out there, right now, the way it's going with health and everything else, there's a chance that the children will outlive the parents. And with cancer on the rise, between 1 and 2 people, you know, sort of 500 people die in a day of cancer, without being a prophet of doom on you, because I do think we're going to have a positive future. But right now, as it stands, that is the numbers that we're throwing out there, you know. And we still got the dream spell of COVID-19, which I'm not going to get into on this one, because we could do a whole another whole broadcast on that. But yeah, genuinely, the nonsense that is by your troglodyte classes, shall we say, then as far as I'm concerned, with the troglodyte classes that are running society, which are all part of the Sabbatean globalist agenda, then yes, the numbers don't look great. But I genuinely believe that the millennials are the future. And, you know, they're going to help contribute to a great future.
I
believe
personally think that a lot of millennials have the drive that any human does, you know, that they want to achieve something with their life.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people that are in my generation, I mean, I've seen it, they give up. They push and push and push until they're about 25, 26, and then they give up.
And you can understand why. I mean, like you say, you know, just say, for instance, now you meet a lady, the two of you together, you're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Property values are horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
The job incomes are low. The banks are created on a fiction. Society is all on a fiction. And, you know, until we come out of that, which we will, humanity is going to come out of it. It is coming to an end, the globalists' agenda, even though they don't like it. It is going to come to an end because people are waking up. And I just feel right now, as you say, as it currently stands, going on to the point on what you're saying, it doesn't look good. So if you are a millennial or a Zoomer, especially if you're a Zoomer, you've been preconditioned in school.
I think the
You
Gen
can't
Zs.
have a
I
voice.
think the Gen Zs have a better deal though, because they've. If you look at I think humor is a great humor and pop culture is a great way to sort of measure cultural norms. If you
yeah.
catch my drift, like millennials, everything about millennials is nihilism. You know, that's the overarching humor. With Gen Zers, it's all absurdism. All right, there's a difference. There's a vast difference there, and you know, the absurdist movement originally was in like the 30s or 20s or 30s, wasn't it? In Germany, it started up. So
yes, you're right. Yeah.
And obviously that's influenced by, like, you know, the weird Dadaism and stuff that is pumped into modern cartoons, like SpongeBob and Adventure Time and things like that. They've all been influenced by Dadaism and absurdism and stuff like that. But partially because it's such an interesting aesthetic, but also partially because it says, you know, it speaks to a lot of people, that sort of dreamlike quality of just unsettling weirdness.
Yeah, but there has definitely been, like when you go back to the cartoons and that sort of thing, there's definitely been sort of like an avatar change or shift almost to the human, in my opinion anyway, because if you look at modern cartoons, they've all got big eyes, it's all bright colors, and it is almost like that sort of almost you're taking away they're very clever now on what they're able to do with animation, editing, and CGI. It doesn't seem as if they're putting it like a human. It's almost like a bot, in my opinion.
I think they're gonna go for whatever they can that is popular and cheap at the end of the day. So the animation on modern cartoons, I think, to a degree, obviously not including things like SpongeBob and Adventure Time, because they're sort of pillars of animation. You know, the production values on them are massively higher than any other cartoon that are out at the minute. But things like PJ Masks and all, you know, the kids, like small kids TV shows and stuff, the animation has taken a hit because the market's become so highly saturated that the way that they keep afloat is by being cheap and being eye-catching, basically.
Yeah.
It's the same with horror movies now. You know, Blumhouse has taken over massively because their movies are incredibly cheap and they get bums in seats. Doesn't matter if they're good or not. Like all the Paranormal Activity movies, you know, there's how many? Like 6, 8? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's quite a lot, isn't it?
There's a lot of them because they were really cheap to make. You know, it's one set, very little in terms of special effects. You know, there's just the odd bit of wire work or camera trickery, and you're done, basically. You know, all these Blumhouse movies, most of them are a few million, you know, to make.
Yeah.
You compare that to the average blockbuster or like old school horror movies, which required multiple sets, tons of special effects. Like you'll never see, I don't think you'll ever see a movie like The Thing ever again. Not with practical effects.
Probably not. I mean, the thing is, like you just said there, it's a very important sort of point you've raised there in terms of, you know, you even look at a Hollywood B movie and you look at some of the stars that they got and even the money they, you know, you look at somebody like Steven Seagal, right? Steven Seagal, all right, he makes some of his own movies, so he will make money, but most of his stuff just goes straight to a DVD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He hasn't had, like, in my opinion, a Hollywood hit since, you know, like the Under Siege films and things like that, where he did tremendously well and he had commercial success on.
So it's like early 90s, right? Like,
yeah, like I think he did a bit with Machete and so, you know, because there was a lot of stars in that, but there wasn't anything you could particularly write home about. Is you know, I've watched his movies, you know, I've enjoyed some of his movies and things like that, even the ones that have come out straight on DVD. But the point I'm making in terms of, in answer to your sort of point there, is the money that, say, Steven Seagal would earn is probably the budget of one of their movies. You know, the whole movie. And it's phenomenal, really, what they do turn out with such a low budget, like you said. You know, even though somebody may look at it and say, well, you know, that's piss poor compared to, you know.
Well, you think
something else?
I personally think the Purge movies are really, really good because yes, they're dumb, but they say quite a lot. There's a lot of subtext.
What I worry about the Purge movies, especially when you're looking at certain things going on in America, that it's not going to happen in reality. Well, you know, and it wasn't pre-programming. And as mad as that sounds, I do worry about that. You know?
Yeah. But besides besides that point, they, you know, the first couple at least were very low budget. Again, but they took massive amounts. I can get the numbers up.
Because I remember watching Hunger Games, disliking it, and the more I see lockdowns and different zones they're allowed in, I'm starting to think, hang on a minute, was Hunger Games predictive programming? So I'm just a little bit worried that the Purge might be predictive programming.
I've no idea. Right, let's have a look at the Purge.
And if
box office ratings. But this is, again, this is, I know we're going on to movies, but this is to do with market saturation, right? And it's the same with.
If there was a Purge, and I genuinely mean this, I'd like it to be in number 10 of a certain address in Britain. With pitchforks and axes to get these Sabbateans out, because that's what you would do with the schoolyard bully.
Fair enough. Right, but back to the point I was trying to make about cartoons and things. So there's market saturation, which is the same as, in my eyes, it's the same as population saturation, because everything is evolution to an extent. You know, everything's survival of the fittest. With business, it's similar to, you know, you've got a good product, it's the same as having a good body design, right?
Yeah, of course.
And a horror movie,
a good body design, I don't know.
Yeah. But, you know, a horror movie is a great, you know, business design, because like The Purge, right? So its budget was 3 million, right? Quite low budget. Pretty damn low budget for a movie. It made opening 34 million. That was just in the US.
Well, okay, it's big numbers in comparison.
Right. And its grosses, domestic 64 million, international 24 million. So worldwide 89 million, right? So it's 30 times its budget. Fair enough, you put into, you double that for marketing and things like that. So add another 3 million, right? So still 15 times its budget.
Yeah, well, any business model that could do that or achieve those numbers would be phenomenal, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Which
you
is
can
why,
see, you know,
which is why the market's changed like that. And the thing is, low budget movies used to be something that was not big business, you know, but now it is. And so now Blumhouse has taken another element of something that's small and startup, and there's not a lot of small startup stuff left. And I don't need to, you know, keep hammering the plight of the millennial, but you know, it's these big businesses, they buy up everything that's successful.
They do.
You see it with Amazon. What they do is they price gouge you. They basically, because they own such a large market portion of the market, people that have businesses, online businesses, they go to Amazon to sell a product or to sell multiple products. Amazon watches what they sell, looks at their analytics, then creates a competing product, undercuts the business, and promotes it on their platform, right? So once they've figured out what's going well in a business,
but Amazon are facing legal action where that's concerned, because it's not ethical what they're doing.
No, but they've been getting away with it for decades.
They have, but I do believe the time has come for that. I know Google this week has been in court. It hasn't been on the lamestream again, because the lamestream doesn't report real news. But again, I do, you know, it's an interesting point you raised with Amazon, because you're absolutely right, what Amazon has been doing. And I don't care if it causes this video to be banned, because Bezos is in bed with the Sabbateans and everything else like that. But genuinely, Jeff Bezos needs to be taken out late at night and disemboweled with a cooking spoon or left bleeding in the moonlight. The guy is
Not that we
absolutely
would ever issue a call to arms or encourage violence on our channel.
Not unless we're making a Purge movie. And
This is just a move. You know, it would be good if we could make a movie where a Jeff, possibly played by Vin Diesel, Jeff Bezos, is murdered during a.
Yeah, absolutely. For making 200 million more since the pandemic sort of hit, of this pandemic that we'd fake. And we'd make up ridiculous ideas like past 10 o'clock you couldn't socialize.
Oh, have you heard this one? In Scotland, they're bringing back alcohol in Scotland, but only if you have it with a meal. I thought that one was good. I was like, what? So coronavirus can tell whether you've had a deep fried Mars bar or not?
It genuinely, look, you're joking, but we need to be serious, you know, it genuinely can.
Yeah.
You know, it can.
Anyway,
it can
we're
differentiate
not here to talk
between
about
sex and
coronavirus.
them.
We're not here to talk about coronavirus.
I can't help it.
back to the overarching point of psychology and sort of social constructs. It's a bit weird, and I think a lot of, like with the Gen Z, I think they've completely just, like, millennials are the generation that is aware of the problem and is still like, I want to do things with my life, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Gen Xers are people that
that's me, isn't it?
Have done and still do things with their lives. Even though there's been, you know, economic issues. Obviously boomers and that, they're often the people that are in the highest echelons of business, and the obviously the lowest as well. But I think the Gen Zers have just completely, they don't give a crap. I think they've, from talking to them in my limited capacity, you know, at work we've got a couple.
Do you think that it's this rat sort of scenario then, this mouse scenario?
I think there's parallels to be drawn, which is why I showed it.
Fascinating.
And I think, I don't know, because I don't know, I can't get into the head of a Gen Zer, but I think they have to an extent given up, or you know, don't care about the fight to prove. I think they're more interested in living in the moment.
Do you think they've been preconditioned into that?
I generally don't know. I think it says something about the state of society. I think it will lead to incredibly interesting literature, given
because
10, 15
I think
years.
Society has been given everything they want, more or less, in terms of entertainment, food, clothing, everything else. If you want to on a Saturday night, go out and get slaughtered, come back, sticks copious amounts of cocaine up your nose, masturbate yourself silly because you've got pornography, and then you know, hire a hooker or sex worker.
But they've got everything.
It's all there, isn't it?
You could think of, right? It's anything you could possibly think of. You can look up and watch, or find somewhere on the internet.
Yeah.
So there's a community for you, whatever you are, however you think, and so that's why I think the Gen Z they're much more blasé from what I've seen.
Well, everything's got a label, but then they don't like labels. And, you can't say
Millennials
this.
Millennials are guilty of the whole labeling thing as well, though. So.
Yeah, but like from my point of view, I won't be silenced. If I've got something to say, I'll say it. I believe in I can't speak for every, person of my generation, and I know there are exceptions to the rule in all generations, but I definitely don't believe in being pussy whipped by society to not be allowed to speak, to not be allowed to say anything, by these crew cut.
Do you think they're more
embraces bloody leftist agendaized people that'll only allow you to have their narrative, and if you go against their narrative at all, then you've got to lose your job. You're a racist. And
do you think the Gen Z is a more
anti-Semite, or you're sexist, or you're homophobic? And it's like, well, I'm none of them things, but at the end of the day, if the shoe fits, lace it up, and let's man up about this,
Just, do you think the Gen Zers are more concerned with
well, I'll use a quote
correctness?
I'll use a quote from Clint Eastwood. And Clint Eastwood was going on about today's generation. Clint Eastwood is known as a bit of a man's man, an old school. And quote, it was in an article I read. I don't know if Clint Eastwood actually said it, because I don't believe it until I can actually hear it myself. But it was in a magazine article. I forget which one, but I did read it. And it said, Generation Z are a fucking embarrassment. They're a pussy generation, and they need to get up off their arse and fight for what they write, because they are the future. And the future is looking depressing. And that was what he put.
Do you think we sound like a couple of older gits sitting in the rafters moaning about
because I genuinely believe in my heart that they will turn things around, and they are the future. I just genuinely believe that the way society and the upper echelons of society, and I'm not talking about people that are successful in business, I'm not talking about a boomer that's made a few quid. I'm talking about these political classes that have destroyed through the education system and through infiltrating organizations and the money system and the bankers, the globalists, in terms of and an interesting movie, I'd say, to put that as a point, is The Straw Man. I'd recommend for anybody to watch that. But yeah, I do think that has been the generation that's been the victim of everything.
But I mean, millennials, the big thing with millennials back 10, 15 years ago is they were considered the generation that felt like the world owed them something. That was what everybody said about us. We were like always moaning that, like, Why isn't the world working for me? You know.
Well, to be honest, I would agree with that to a certain because the boomers were asleep at the wheel. They had everything, and you know, I'm not blaming all boomers here, but I am.
Mm.
The shoe fits, lace it up. They've been asleep at the wheel, and that's why we're in a state that we are right now. And even to my generation.
So do you think that people were annoyed at millennials because they were moaning about and pointing things out that were wrong?
In some extent, yeah, because we've had, I haven't had everything on a plate, shall we say, but I have had a lot of things.
Well, the Gen Xers, they're sort of, your generation tends to be overlooked quite a lot in the generational paradigms. You know, I don't know what the Gen Xers' opinion or what they sort of view the world as.
I'll speak for every Gen X out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can't deny, as you know, but genuinely, from my perspective as being a Gen Xer, I think that the future's good. I think that the Zoomers and the Millennials have got a massive part to play, and I think they'll do a great job. And I can see a lot of positivity. I do think they've had a rough deal. And I genuinely believe that, because you look at me, for instance, growing up and living in Wales, there were jobs, and there has been jobs. Yes, we've suffered political classes and their rigged system. But just to give you an idea, in the early millennial, I could have bought a house for 34 grand.
Mm.
Your generation would look at me like as if there's something wrong with me that I'm quoting that figure. Now, that ain't that long ago.
I mean, you can buy a car for that, a nice car, but you know.
But yeah, but this is what I'm saying, and like I said, you know, it was possible to leave your home in your early 20s in my generation. So that's how bad and how far we've become the other way. But it's going to flip. It's going to go a 360.
Mm.
And I don't mean the great reset that these bastards have got planned for us with Agenda 21 and 2030. I genuinely mean the real reset, where we possibly look into Nasara and Jasara.
I think the point that the Mouse Utopia experiment brings up that is possibly quite interesting is, do you not think that a reset, you know, a population crash is inevitable because of the way that population... Yes. Because, I mean, you're starting to see it in Japan. Like, their population is, their birth rate is massively in decline.
Yeah, and if we carry on, we will be. But it's going to change, because we're going through a time right now called the Great Awakening, which is in Revelations. And I genuinely believe in my heart that we will turn it around. I believe in humanity, and I believe in the future gens, your generation, the Generation Z, and the future generations. And I do believe in that.
So this is predictions for births per 1,000 people in Japan. Hang on, I'll just share my screen.
There's not enough women there.
Well, there's plenty of women there. They just don't really talk to...
I thought there was less women there than
no,
men.
No, I think you're thinking of China.
Because I know...
I think you're thinking... I mean, we can look it up, but this is from 1950.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, it's just flatlined, isn't it?
So it's just, I mean, there was a spike in, what was that? It's a small spike there, but on the whole, it's consistently been dropping.
Now, I can tell you through observing Pornhub that there's no lack of Japanese men that want to get it on.
It's not about that though, is it?
No, but it's about the breeding, isn't it?
It's about the social aspect of it, which...
Yeah, well, that was part of it, wasn't it? I mean, now you've got an app, you swipe left, you swipe right. Before, you'd sort of go out and you'd sort of say, hi, and you'd sort of say, a non-politically correct joke that will get every single Zoomer quaking in their boots. You'd sort of say, were your parents retarded? And the lady would turn around and look at you and stare. And you'd go, because you were special. Or something along them lines as a great chat-up line, or, see this, feel this, darling, is boyfriend material. But
so
no,
you can still get away with some of them on Tinder. I remember a few months back, I matched with some girl called Nia, Niah, and I decided to replace the lyrics of I think it's the song from the Titanic, the one that goes near, far, wherever,
yeah.
that one, with Nia, as in her name. Didn't get a response, but I thought it was funny. So
yeah, but again, without wishing to offend anybody, and I definitely don't want to upset anybody that is retarded, but genuinely, that was a pickup line back in the day. I'm not joking. That was a pickup line. I've used it. I've had a slap for it. And I also had a kiss for it too. So it does work. It's if we had a ratio for it, which sure you could do, but there are no pubs or anything in Japan probably that you can go and do it. And like in Britain now, you can't go out past 10 o'clock, and normally that was the time
thing,
you'd pick something up around about then.
I mean, the dating scene in general has been completely obliterated, pretty much.
But they won't win. That's what I'm saying. That this won't. This has got to play out, and I think where people, like we mentioned earlier on in the broadcast about Braco and focusing your point of awareness and your point of attention towards healing or this, that, and the other, I genuinely think we need to focus towards the positivity and what we can do. Oh, well, you must wear a mask. You must not do this. You must not do that. Well, no, actually. I'm me. I'm a sovereign human being, and I'm taking my sovereignty, and I'm going to enjoy my life, and I'm going to enjoy my point of awareness and my experience. So if that means then
spread the joy through the healing gaze of Braco.
Who could argue with that? And if you pull with it,
I've never tried to pull this shirt on.
Do you know something? If you pull with that shirt on, she's gonna have to be a keeper, isn't she?
That would be good. And it'd be definitely one of those stories that you'd be able to tell your grandkids, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
you could even email Braco and tell him, say thank you. I've just, like, if you got married to the bird,
Well, I think it would be class, because if you managed to get like a global wedding,
you could even possibly, you could pay for him to turn up at your wedding and just oversee the ceremony.
No, people think this is ridiculous. This is where we go with things.
Yeah.
I'd
have a whole Braco. You could have him on the cake. Braco
why
themed
not?
wedding.
Why not?
Brought two people together in love and harmony. Like that's his whole thing. And I think that's good. I think we need more Bratzo in the world.
I think you definitely need to put a link to his website on this broadcast. I genuinely, or his.
I'll put a link to his channel.
Yeah,
underneath the podcast. So check the link if you're interested in finding out more about Bratzo.
Yeah.
Definitely worth a watch. I might also link some more. I'll link something about the Mass Utopia Experiments and stuff like that. Just so that everything's above board. But yeah, I think it was a bit of a rambling one. We just sort of.
I think that's what me and you do best. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not politically correct, and I don't say things sometimes, but fuck them. You know, if somebody can't sort of take somebody for what they are, fuck them.
I think we can maybe discuss more about Bratzo and or people of this sort of vein in a future episode. Not anytime soon, I don't think. We'll probably leave that on the back burner for a while, give you guys a break. But
well, I'm interested in looking perhaps in episode 3, looking and trying to do something for Donald Trump before we go into the US election. So we might need to get a buzz on for that because we haven't got long.
Yeah, we'll get that sort of recorded at some point.
Trumpology. And after that, who knows what we're going to do then? Marxism.
Kill me.
Communism, but the possibilities are endless. Maybe somebody wants to put in the comments below what they want us to cover, and we'll look at anything. Could even be, food. Please, somebody look at food and say what they want us to, like, food review. That would be really, really nice.
Well, you are in your car at the moment, so you're halfway there to being a food reviewer. So.
Yeah. Or even something towards any subject you like. If somebody's interested in a subject that they want me and Elliot to sort of look at, we are interested in sort of looking at different narratives and looking at other people's points of views. I haven't got a problem with doing that.
I think we need to do an episode on the freak show element of the internet, how people are one thing, the fame of YouTube and of the viral star. I think an episode on the viral star would be very good because there's people like Bagel Boss that I talked to you briefly about.
Yeah.
That I think they need to be discussed at length,
absolutely,
at great length, because I think it's another interesting aspect of human psyche. When someone that is lauded for doing one thing, usually something morally reprehensible, and they realize there's money in this, what lengths they will go to pursue that, because it makes them feel important, because it makes them feel uplifted in themselves.
I'm up for doing a video on that. I haven't got a problem with that. I'll sort of look at anything. And it's nice sometimes to step out of
the political sphere. Yeah. Because this one was psychology, but it's obviously, I hope you guys got that it was, based on the idea of current events. Not that I want to be, we don't want to be the doom and gloom channel. But
definitely not the realist. I don't want to be ever classed as a conspiracy theorist, just a conspiracy realist. If something's factual or there's a potential for it, then let's look at it.
I think it's just, it's an important bit of experimentation that not a lot of people know about, to be honest. and it does
No.
bring a hell of a lot of stuff into sharp focus, I think.
Well, I thought
personally.
that it was something I'd come up about before, but I hadn't sort of come about this. This was really interesting, and it sheds a different light on, or correlates, shall we say, with what's going on in society, actually. So you were bang on the money there.
I just think it's interesting, you know, they're given everything they want, and everything goes skew whiff within a matter of, you know, like less than a year, and the real world examples of similar behavior happening in modern cultures around the world, with birth rates and things like that, and social stratification, you know. I think that's all I wanted to show really on this podcast, and I hope it's given some people some food for thought.
I got a final thought for Japan, if you're okay with it.
Yeah, sure.
Japan, please get breeding. We need you. Listen to Uncle Daz. You need to start breeding, okay?
Keep shagging. All right.
Keep shagging. Okay, man. Well, I'll catch you soon, okay?
Yes, I think this was a good one. All right.
Take care.
Hope you enjoyed, guys.
Bye.